Одна пощечина. Всего один резкий короткий звук, разнесшийся в запретной тишине гарема. Никто не должен был это слышать. Но эта тишина была обманчива, ибо она стала прелюдией к веку крови и стали, к веку войны, что поглотит целые династии. Мгновение, не более. В шелках и ароматах, за стенами, где каждый вздох был измерен, каждый взгляд — кинжал. Это не был удар страсти, нет, это была печать. Отчеканенная на лице той, что некогда считалась непоколебимой, властной. И в тот миг, когда ладонь коснулась щеки, не плоть ощутила боль, но сам каркас власти, сотканный из вековых обычаев и неписанных законов. Почувствуйте это, этот холодный озноб, пронзающий столетия. Ведь то, что началось как личная обида, в этой золотой клетке, где воздух был густ от амбиций и отравленных надежд, не могло остаться личным. Оно стало катализатором. Вы знаете, не так ли, что даже самый мягкий шелк может задушить, если его правильно обернуть? Эта тишина, что последовала за ударом, была куда страшнее любого крика. Она была наполнена невысказанными клятвами, непрощенными грехами, затаенной жаждой возмездия. В тени колонн, что видели столько восходов и закатов империй, я ощутил, как воздух сгущается, как невидимая трещина пронзает самый фундамент династии. Сколько раз, скажите мне, вы наблюдали, как одно неосторожное движение запускает цепную реакцию, что переписывает ход истории? Здесь, в этом лабиринте дворцовых интриг, где каждая улыбка могла быть предательством, а каждый комплимент — предвестником яда, подобный акт был не просто оскорблением, это был вызов. Вызов, брошенный не одной женщине другой, но одной кровной линии, всему, что она олицетворяла. Из этого единственного звука, этого бесшумного взрыва, произросла долгая темная песня. Песня о борьбе за трон, о братоубийстве, о городах, что превратятся в пепел. Слышите ли вы ее сквозь века? Он доносится до нас, этот, как предупреждение. Ибо даже в самой глубокой тени, за самыми тяжелыми вратами, ничто не может остаться скрытым вечно. Особенно то, что обречено изменить мир. Here, within these walls, the air itself was a tapestry woven from whispered ambitions and the heavy scent of jasmine. The light, filtered through stained glass, painted the marble floors in shifting hues, revealing not just beauty, but the cold glint of polished stone. A silence, profound and absolute, lay over everything, broken only by the rustle of silk, the faint chime of a jeweled bracelet, the distant murmur of eunuchs. Here, my friends, every step upon these plush Persian carpets, every word exchanged in hushed tones behind latticed screens, even the merest flicker in a lady's kohl-lined eye, it all weighed more than gold. More than the imperial treasury itself, for it held the currency of power, of life and death. This was a world where women were not merely vessels for the bloodline, destined only to bear sons and secure the future. No, this was where power truly resided, a subtle, serpent-like force. They were architects of destiny, these women, weavers of fate. Their hands, adorned with rings of sapphire and pearl, were as adept with the sharp needle of intrigue as they were with the fine threads of embroidery. They spun intricate networks of loyalty and betrayal, a silent, deadly craft capable of elevating princes to the golden throne, or toppling sultans from their gilded perch. This was the great game of queens. A brutal, beautiful ballet of power, played out in shaded courtyards and the hushed sanctity of gilded chambers, where the stakes were nothing less than an empire. Look closely, beyond the shimmering silks, past the dazzling gleam of emerald and ruby that adorned every surface. See the faces, serene as carved porcelain, yet each one a fortress, guarding 1,000 secrets beneath their painted perfection. In this golden cage of power, there was no quarter given, no sanctuary for the weak, no forgiveness for the naive. A slip of the tongue, a moment of uncalculated honesty, a single, unguarded tear. Such things were not mere errors. They were sentences. A drop of raw emotion, exposed to the light, was like a drop of potent poison in a crystal goblet. It could be the beginning of the end. For her, for her son, for the very dynasty itself, unraveling a lineage centuries in the making. Each woman here, from the youngest, most hopeful concubine to the most seasoned, battle-hardened Validid Sultan, understood this chilling truth in her bones. Their lives, their futures, the very continuation of their bloodline and the legacy of their ancestors hung by threads as delicate as spun gold, yet as strong and unyielding as tempered steel. They were players in a game older than the empire, a game where the stakes were absolute, where victory meant immortality and defeat meant oblivion. The Sultan's throne, the family's legacy, the very soul of the realm and its untold riches, all were bound by the intricate, often invisible, machinations of those who moved in the deepest shadows, cloaked in luxury, armed with silence, and driven by an ambition as ancient and relentless as the desert winds. The very air within these gilded walls had grown heavy, not with perfume or incense, but with something far more potent, the unspoken threat of rupture. I stood, as I always do, a silent witness behind this ancient pillar, my gaze fixed upon the stage where destiny was now poised to unleash its cruelest hand. Two figures, two souls, woven from ambition and veiled in silk, stood at the precipice. One, the established, her presence a monument of power, built on years of calculated cruelty and unwavering resolve. The other, the newcomer, vibrant and defiant, a challenge hurled against the very foundations of the old order. Their words, when they came, were not shouts, but whispers. Yet, each syllable carried the weight of a sharpened blade, each glance a dart of venom. The court, a tableau of frozen faces, breathed as one, shallow and quick. Every gaze, every held breath was fixed on her, the newcomer, who dared to speak with such defiant fire, and on her, the established, whose eyes, usually cold as winter ice, now burned with a terrifying, contained fury. A flicker of an eyelash, a tightening of a jaw. The rhythm quickened, a drumbeat in the soul, not heard, but felt. This was not a mere disagreement. This was the clash of two stars, each certain of its own celestial right. And then it happened. Not a grand theatrical gesture, but a sudden, visceral reflex. An impulsive surge of raw, untamed power. A hand moved, and the silk, a delicate scarf that had been clutched in the newcomer's trembling grasp, slipped from her fingers. It fell upon the polished marble floor. It landed, not with a rustle, but with a soft, final sigh, like spilled blood upon the ancient stone. And silence descended. Not merely an absence of sound, no, not that simple mercy, but a thick, palpable, murderous silence that screamed of the violation of all unwritten laws. A hush so profound it seemed to absorb the very light from the chandeliers, casting long, accusing shadows across the faces of those who watched. No one could believe what their eyes had just witnessed, but all felt it deep in their bones. This was the end of the former world. The sound, or rather the lack of it, was deafening. It echoed not in the ears, but in the heart, a testament to the seismic shift that had just occurred. A breath caught, another held. The air itself seemed to crackle with an unseen energy, a prelude to storm. The weight of that fallen silk, that single, innocuous piece of fabric, was heavier than any crown. It was a shroud cast over an era, a symbol, stark and undeniable, of a line crossed, a boundary shattered, a betrayal so profound it would resonate through generations. Do you see it, my dears? The quiet, terrible power of that moment. The seemingly small act that would rip open the very fabric of the dynasty. One impulsive gesture, yet it carried the seeds of a century of war. A bloodline, once thought eternal, now stood on the brink, its foundations trembling. The shadow of that slap, unseen by many, yet felt by all, stretched out, long and cold, promising an endless winter. The game of queens had just taken its deadliest turn, and the price of such a transgression would be paid in poison and in blood, across 100 battlefields yet to be drawn. The silence, then, was not an ending, but a beginning. The first stone thrown into a vast, dark sea. The echo of that single sharp sound, it lingered, didn't it? A tremor, subtle yet profound, rippled through the very stones of the palace walls. For the men, those guardians of tradition and steel, it was a wound to the Sultan's honor, a stain on the immaculate tapestry of protocol, a transgression that demanded swift, visible justice. But for the women, for the women, those architects of unseen power, it was a different kind of dawn. A crack in the gilded cage, perhaps. An unexpected opening, seen not as a desecration, but as a potent, undeniable opportunity. Did you feel it? The sudden, almost imperceptible shift in the air? The silence that followed was not empty. It was heavy, pregnant with unspoken intent. Every gaze, every casual brush of silk as a lady passed, every hushed word exchanged in the perfumed chambers, each was now charged with a new, potent meaning. A flicker in the eye, a momentary hesitation, a slight tightening of a jawline beneath layers of veil. These were the new languages spoken. This was no longer about simple vengeance, a petty score to settle for a bruised cheek or wounded pride. No, this was the genesis of strategy, cold and calculating, blossoming in the shadows. An invisible pact, woven into the very fabric of the dynasty's survival, had been rent. The ancient, unspoken rules that governed the delicate balance of power within these walls, the veneer of obedience, the intricate dance of subservience, all had shattered with that single, resonant slap. A line had been crossed, a boundary erased, and in its wake, chaos, exquisite and terrifying, began to bloom. And so, the true game began. In the deep, encroaching shadows of the haremlik, where the heady scent of jasmine mingled with the metallic tang of ruthless ambition, new threads were spun. The flickering oil lamps cast dancing silhouettes, hiding the true faces of the players. A broken seal on a parchment, once guarded with fierce loyalty, now lay exposed on a heavy oak table, its secrets whispering to eager ears. A cup of crimson sherbet, offered with a smile as radiant as the morning sun, now held a bitter promise, a whisper of poison, potent and swift, meant to silence a rival. Betrayal, a serpent uncoiling, found its home not just in deeds, but in the very bloodline itself, causing the ancient lineage to tremble, to question its own survival. Here, in these gilded, suffocating halls, there were no saints, no devils, my friend, only players, only survivors. Each move, each hushed conversation behind closed doors, each calculated silence that stretched like a taut bowstring, every single one pushed them further down a path from which there was no return. The game of queens had begun in earnest, its rules written in the hearts of ambitious women. And the stakes were not merely crowns, or even the Sultan's favor, but the very soul of an empire, poised on the edge of an abyss. And every step, deliberate and silent, marched them towards the inevitable. The air, once thick with the scent of jasmine and ambition, now carried a different fragrance, the faint, metallic tang of an unraveling. That single, sharp sound, barely a whisper in the vastness of the palace, had shattered far more than skin. It was not the clang of steel, nor the roar of cannons that heralded the dawn of this new, terrible era. No, the war began with something far more insidious, more intimate. It began with the slow, inexorable destruction of trust, a poison seeping into the very bloodline of the dynasty, tainting its future from within. For a century would bleed. A century of curses echoing through these chambers, of battles staining foreign sands crimson, claiming hundreds of thousands of lives. All born from one seemingly insignificant moment, one thoughtless gesture, a solitary flash of pride that tore the very fabric of time. The betrayal was not overt, not yet, but a seed planted in fertile, ruthless ground. Look closely, if you dare, into the shadows of this grandeur. Do you not see the lingering specter of that moment? Remember this, for it is a truth etched into the heart of every empire. Even the smallest stone, tossed carelessly into placid waters, can summon waves that erode continents, that devour shores. And within these opulent walls, where the thirst for power is the only true faith, such waves are not mere ripples. They swell into historical tsunamis, reshaping destinies with a force both brutal and unforgiving. The silk of peace, once so finely woven, now lay in tatters. The silence that descended after that fateful instant was not peace. It was the gasp before the storm, the solemn prelude to a symphony of sorrow and strife. And its mournful echo still whispers through these ancient stones, a chilling testament to the irreversible cost of a single, ill-considered act. A dynasty undone not by external foes, but by the venom of its own making.